Hello, this is our next video on how to read secondary sources for this course. Secondary sources are articles, most often articles or book chapters that are written by historians or others, whatever the case may be, typically about a primary source, right? So, for example, let's say I have a primary source, an original source, right? Let's say it's a letter that John Muir wrote, right? The secondary sources are sources written about John Muir's letters, right? And trying to contextualize them historically and that sort of thing. So a secondary source for this class will be, say, Jennifer Ratner Rosenhagen's The Ideas That Made America, right? It's a book. It's about the world of early America, at least in the sections that we're reading, early colonial America. And so the idea here is that you are learning how to engage in the readings of those sorts of texts well. Okay, so what can you do in brief, down and dirty fashion? How can you read secondary sources well, efficiently? Okay. First, if it's an article, very often, if it's well written, the author has, the journal, for example, has an abstract. And if it doesn't have an abstract, if it's just like a book chapter, there's an introductory paragraph, and then there's usually a conclusion section of that book chapter, concluding paragraph. Sometimes it'll say conclusion, but you'll get a sense depending on the source. But introduction, conclusion, and then the stuff in between, of course, is the body material. Now, if it's well written, that introduction is more or less going to provide for you an overview of where the chapter is going, right, or where the article's going, which will include the argument, the basic dimensions of that argument, or sub sections of that argument, right, or topics, if you will, of that argument. And the conclusion will do the same, except it'll probably summarize what it's done in terms of its argumentation, and then gesture towards something usually that's coming down the line. Okay, so first, if you read the introduction and the conclusion closely, right, you're already going to know, okay, this is what this is about. Of course, the title, that too. This is what this is about. And more than that, this is what the author is going to argue here. Now, in the body paragraphs, what you want to do is take, say, if there's headings, read each of the headings, get a sense for the direction of the argument, and then read the topic sentence and the concluding sentence, right? Just like the introduction and conclusion. Now you're reading topic sentence, concluding sentence, topic sentence, concluding sentence. And then in between that, all the paragraphs in between, or all the sentences rather, in between the topic and concluding sentences, just sort of like skim or scan through for keywords, ideas, maybe quotes, something that you can sort of anchor down to, and where it seems like, whoa, this is really important, because if you remember now, you remembered like the argument, right? Their stated claim. If you notice, this is where they're really coming home to their argument. That's where you really stop and you dig in or drill down into that section of the reading, okay? So again, that's secondary sources in particular. And again, not all the sources are the same exactly. Some of them are from older times or more recent times, but you'll get the hang of it. But again, intro, conclusion, body paragraphs, under each of the subheadings if they have them, or paragraphs, that is, topic sentences, concluding sentences, and then sort of like scanning or skimming down through the body paragraphs. That's if you're really pressed for time, okay? But do the best you can. Next video will be about primary sources.